is coho season right here, right now in Puget Sound, and I'm super excited about it because I love fishing for coho. They are just such a great fish. They're acrobatic, they eat flies. You don't have to get super deep for them most of the time. They're just a lot of fun on a fly rod. And in this video, I want to help you kind of wrap your head around picking flies for coho. If you are brand new to salmon fishing, you're going to find this incredibly helpful. So I would say that there's like two different styles of flies that we are really looking at when we're picking flies for the saltwater. And these are flies that we're going to be casting or flies that we might be trolling. So we do a lot of kayak fishing. We've even been messing around with some paddleboard fishing for coho as well, but then we also have buddies that have boats and we go out with them too. So we're gonna talk about these kind of two different categories. And first we're gonna start with flies that you cast for coho. Now, the actual pattern is probably not as important as the colors are. There's a big debate among salmon anglers, and it is whether the pink over white clouser or the Chartreuse over white clouser is the most effective fly. And some of us are indecisive when we reach into our box and there's tons of different flies and we just go with the Fruity Loops. So this is the pink over Chartreuse over white. So I know for those of you that are indecisive, this might be the ticket for you as well. I have found from years of fishing for coho and when I have those mornings out on the salt where it's foggy and low light, especially foggy mornings, overcast mornings, I love fishing a Chartreuse fly that has a lot of flash. And if you're a fly tyer, there's a flash material out there from Hairline called Chroma Flash, and this fly is tied with a lot of Chroma Flash in it, and the stuff is electric in the water. I absolutely love it. And so these are flies that we're going to be casting. We're using a 7-weight or an 8-weight rod, usually with a very aggressive integrated shooting headline that can turn over these flies at distance. And so we're casting off the beach, maybe casting from the kayak or from a boat. And these are great flies to cast. And so the clouser is more of a style of fly than an actual pattern at this point. It has been such an influential fly. But pink over white, Chartreuse over white, those are great colors. You can go with the Fruit Loops of the combo color. But there's also another one that I really like, and it's called the Tofino Special. And this is a pink over orange over white. And for several years, we were hosting trips up on Vancouver Island out of Tofino. And I'm bummed we don't do it anymore, but hey, that's, things kind of change, right? But the thing I love about this pattern is the way that the BC guys would tie it up would be with polar bear, and it would just come alive in the water. And it was such a great color combination. And so I've really integrated that pink and orange color combos into a lot of the flies that I fish, and I have found a lot of success with them as well. Now, sometimes the fish are really keyed into different bait. They're feeding on herring or sand lance or anchovies, different stuff like that. I love fishing like a more natural colored herring pattern. So this one has a lot of flash in it with purple and blue. Peacock herl over the back imitates a herring. It's a good one for kings as well. But I would say that I probably about 75% of the time am throwing a bright colored fly. So either the hot pink or the Chartreuse. And then maybe a quarter of the time I'm fishing more natural colors that are maybe more of the match to hatched variety. Now, I mentioned fishing up in Canada on Vancouver Island, and I used to host trips up there quite a bit. And I learned a lot from some of those Canadian anglers that I would fish with, and it was pretty great. One of the ways that they would fish for coho would be what they call bucktailing, and it would be with a fly that was an unweighted fly, and it has a stinger hook in the back. And this front hook, they do not cut the front hook because the front hook actually keels the fly. And so when you're tying these flies, you want to make sure that you're tying them with the material more stacked so that it ends up keeling the fly so it doesn't spin on you if you happen to be trolling at a little bit of a higher speed. But the way that we fish these is we would put a rod holder like these Scotty rod holders. I love these things. I take the little safety strap off and chuck those things away. I think I'm actually gonna just cut off the little posts on there because these do get wrapped up on fly lines once in a while. But you have your You put the reel in the rod holder and twist it over so it's kind of locked in place, and you have it set so that the rod and the line are just pointed straight out the back. You don't want to have the rod out to the side perpendicular, because then when the fish hits it, it just bends the rod and the rod absorbs the hit. When you have it straight back, the fish eats the fly and there's just the resistance of the drag, and that's it. And that fish is just fighting that, and it sets the hook on the fish. Fishing on the kayak, I'll even pedal a couple times when I have a fish on to just kind of get that hook set. And this is a lot more effective when you're hooking fish and landing fish, a lot more effective than if you're holding the rod or having that rod in the rod holder straight out. So these fly rods are 9 feet long. That's a lot of rod that has a lot of action. And so we would use a sinking line. We would run it off the end of the tip of the rod, sometimes just back in the prop wash, maybe 10 or 12 feet. In the kayak, a lot of times in Puget Sound, we'll have the fly a little bit further back there. And so, we might have the line, more 60, 70 feet back behind the boat. And this is just a really fun way to find fish. And then sometimes we find concentrations of fish, and then we would switch up and we would switch to the clouser and just cast and retrieve the fly. It's a lot of fun to cast and have that fish eat it when you're stripping it in and set the hook on the fish. So sometimes it's a great searching pattern to kind of find fish in likely spots, but then other times it's just fun to catch fish on one of these flies. Now for colors on the bucktail, it's really similar to the program I rock with the clouser. Lots of different natural colors with like purple. There's like a white ghost one that I really like. That one's pretty rad. And then pink and chartreuse, super effective as well. Here's one of my clouser boxes with just more bait fish patterns that I'm casting and retrieving, and I kind of keep the two boxes separate. I even just like label on the boxes, bucktails. So, this one, salmon clousers. We're not getting fancy with it. We're just making it easy to grab a box and grab a fly out when we're out fishing. Now there's one more type of pattern that I'll mention, and this is more specifically for casting to fish, and it is a flat wing style of fly, and I really like to fish these flies. With the clousers, I love having that weighted fly. When that fly drops because of that, those weighted eyes on it, oh my gosh, that up and down action, every salmon in the world wants to crush that movement. They love that thing. So I love that, but the secret in the flat wing is when you cast that flat wing out and you give it a twitch and a strip, and it sits there with those, a deceiver has the feathers tied on the sides. The flat wing, the feathers are tied, stacked on the top, and there's several of them. So like just in this fly right here, I have like 4 feathers tied in. There's a white one, a chartreuse one, and then a couple pink ones. And those feathers, as they're over themselves, they just have like this wiggle to them that makes it look like a swimming fish. The movement is great. And so I do like to fish flat wings as well. And sometimes we'll fish smaller flat wings, like in an olive over white that's imitating bait fish that they're feeding on. And then other times we're fishing chartreuse or pink. I love to throw pink flat wings. That can be a really effective fly as well. If you're finding this information helpful, we have a saltwater clinic that is online that you can check out on our website. It's a super affordable price, and it's about 4 hours of video content. We put a lot of work into helping anglers just like you be equipped to get out on the water and be successful, whether it's in Puget Sound or other coastal areas of the West Coast for salmon. Please leave us a comment down below. If you have questions, we'd love to answer any questions you have. Or maybe there's some particular flies that you really like for salmon as well for fishing for coho. We'd love to hear those from you. And then lastly, just one last box. This is another box, a third box that I have. This one's the messy one of the bunch. But this box has some smaller flies in it that I use sometimes when fish are staging up. And really the flies that I was talking about today are when coho have freshly returned or are returning back to their terminal fisheries, and for fish that are staged up, sometimes called waiting period coho or lockjaw coho, we mix up the tactics for those to be successful. And I'm gonna tackle that topic in the next video.